Welcome everyone to our series, Fundamentals of Kabbalah and Chassidut. Today we are going to finish our mini-series on light. And then we're going to move on to another mini-series to be announced. Especially those who are now members of our WhatsApp group, you'll probably get a update as to what the next mini series will be. So tonight we're going to finish our discussions about light. And tonight we're going to be dealing with light, love, creation, and redemption. So that's a lot, but we're going to try to cover all of our bases here: light, love, creation, and redemption. So we're going to start with the first day of creation and try to understand a certain paradigm in which we can understand how light is not just created on the first day, but in a sense forms the paradigm of all of creation. So one of the teachings is that the 7 days of creation correspond to the 7 lower sfirot. The first day is Chesed, second day is Gevura, third day is Tiferet, fourth day is Netzach, fifth day is Hod, sixth day is Yesod, and seventh day is Malchut. And it could be a whole class in of itself to show the actually amazing correspondences to each day and their sfira. Very quickly, the first day is Chesed, and that in the inner dimension of Chesed is love. That's why we're starting here, because we're talking about light and love and creation, and at the end, redemption. So because we have this idea that one of the reasons that God created the world was to manifest his love, to reveal love, to create relationship. The world, in a sense, is in relationship with God, and the motivating factor, or one of the motivating factors behind the creation, is love itself. And if you remember, the first day ends, Vayi Erev Vayi Boker Yom Echad. It was evening and it was day one. Here it means more than the first day. Day one means a day of oneness that went with all the other days. And that's why Rashi says that everything that would be created ever was already, in a sense, created in potential on the first day. And of course, the first day is the creation of light. Excuse me, Gevura, the second day, is because we have the separation of the upper waters and the lower waters. This represents disagreement, distancing. And that's Gevura. The third day is the creation of greenery, of shrubbery, of trees, of grasses. That is Tiferet. Everyone knows the beauty of nature, how much beauty and good feelings that brings to us. The fourth day is Netzach. That's the creation of the sun and the moon and the stars. And we're told that the sun and the moon, Moshe Rabbeinu brought them as witnesses because they will last forever. That's one of the meanings of Netzach. They will last forever. The fifth day is Hod, which is glory. And here's the beginning of the animal kingdom. And so the glory of God is manifest in such colorful ways, so many species. The sixth day is Yesod, the foundation. And this is the creation of man, because man is the crown of creation, is the foundation of why the world is created. And Shabbat is Malchut, is kingship. The Shabbat bride, the queen, the Shabbat. So here we have love on the first day, which is associated with light, is now going with all the other days. In other words, all the other days have an aspect of this love and light of Hashem. And so we see that the first day ends, Vayi Erev Vayi Boker, Yom Echad, one day. And we know that the numerical value, the gematria of Echad, is 13, and the gematria of love, Ahava, is 13. This is not a casual relationship. It's telling us the essence of love is unity, is oneness, and the essence of unity is a manifestation of love. So here we see how light and love and creation are all merged together, There's a pasuk, Chesed Kel Kol Hayom. The Chesed, the loving kindness of God, is all the day. So all of creation, in a sense, is a manifestation of God's love. And throughout this whole series, we have been saying that everything ultimately is a revelation or a manifestation of the light of God. So here we're not saying two different things. Here's where the unity comes in. That everything, all of creation is the manifestation of God's light and love. And here we see, this is a teaching from Rav Ginzburg, very, very beautiful teaching, that we know that many times we refer to God as HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One. So Rav Ginzburg added the word light, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the light of the Holy One, blessed be He. So there are four letters, the acronym of Or HaKadosh Baruch Hu spells Ahava. That was Rav Ginzburg's Chiddush, that the light of the Holy One, blessed be He, is love. So let's just do it so everyone understands. The first letter of Or is an Aleph. The first letter of HaKadosh is a Hey. The first letter of Baruch is a Bet. And Hu is the Hey. So you have the Aleph, Hey, Bet, Hey, Ahava. So this is just a beautiful kavanah of the light of the Holy One, blessed be He, is love. So here again, we see that these two concepts of light and love really, really go together. Rav Ginzburg explained in a more Kabbalistic way, because these four letters representing these four words represent the whole creative process in miniature. So the Aleph of light of the Holy One, blessed be He, is light. And this is the infinite light before creation. Then the Hey of HaKadosh represents the Tzimtzum, the contraction of the infinite light, in order to make a place for the world. And the word Kadosh means to separate, to make a separation. So God, through the Tzimtzum, made a separation within the infinite light, so there could be a place for the world. Then the Bet of Baruch represents the ray of light, the kav, coming into the vacuum that is created by the tzimtzum. And this is represented by Baruch, blessed, because all creation comes through an expansion of this kav, of this line of light. And then the hu is the lower worlds, all the way down to our very material, physical world. So that's, again, 4 stages where we have infinite light, we have the tzimtzum, we have the ray of light coming into the vacuum and creating all the worlds. And then we have all of the worlds, all the way down to our lower world. All of that is symbolized in these 4 words. And it's all from an acronym of Ahava, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's just a beautiful teaching, a very beautiful meditation, is to take those words and to even sing them, to contemplate them, and how creation comes into the world. So one of the ways that God's love is manifest, of course, it's manifest in infinite ways, is the idea of Shabbat. And here again, we're going to see the connection of love and light, and of course, creation, because every Shabbat is what's called Zecher L'Maaseh Bereshit, a remembrance of the workings of creation, of the act of creation. And of course, every Shabbat is modeled after the Shabbat of Bereshit, where God rested after 6 days of creation. So how do we see that this is a manifestation of God's love? So there's a Midrash that says, God says to Israel, I have a very, very special gift in my hidden storehouse, and Shabbat is its name. So like every Midrash, we have to understand what it's saying. So the idea of this in a sense, hidden treasure house, where God has this incredible gift for the Jewish people. So this is Shabbat. And this is an expression of God's love. When we give a gift, we're expressing our sense of love, of sharing. So Shabbat is very much a revelation of God's special gift to us and his love. Now, this is very much connected to light, because we have the idea that we inaugurate every Shabbat by lighting candles, by bringing light into our homes. And especially the very, very symbolic movement that women make when they light candles is as if they're bringing infinite light into our homes, into our state of consciousness, into the Shabbat. We're drawing down infinite light into this physical world. So this is a very, very beautiful idea to think about, that here again is a unity of light, love, and creation, because as I said, every Shabbat is a remembrance of the first Shabbat and of creation. But here we have a beautiful thing, because this image of God keeping this special gift in his most inner treasure house. So this is very, very connected to the creation of the soul. In Bereshit, we have the the verse that says that God blew into the nostrils of man, and he became a nishmat chayim, a living soul. And he became he blew into his nostrils nishmat chayim, a living soul, and man became a nefesh chaya, a living being. So it says in the Zohar, I believe for those who were here in the Sunday class, we actually learned this in a different context. But the Zohar says that when someone blows, they blow from their inside. And so this is the idea that the soul is an actual part of God above. God is taking from his essence and blowing it into and creating a living soul, a human being who will later be described as being created in the image of God. So in like the essence, this is not said about any of the other creations. There's no other creation that is said to be in the image of God, or that God blew into the nostrils to create this being called humanity. So here we see a beautiful connection between Shabbat and the soul. Each one is, in a sense, coming from the very essence of God, from the deepest, again, we're talking in human terms here, but the deepest level of God is where Shabbat is coming from and where the soul is coming from. And that's why in Vayachulu, we say Vayachulu, this special passage 3 times Friday night, and it ends Vayinafash, and it's like he became soul-like. Shabbos is connected to the soul in the deepest way, because here we say we have neshama yetera on Shabbos. Not only do we have the regular soul, but we have an additional soul. And this is the additional soul of Shabbat. So here, again, we're putting together Shabbat and the soul. And as we said, we usher in Shabbat with light. We talk about the light of Shabbos, and we usher Shabbos out with light in Havdalah. So light, the concept of light, but even in ritual, light is very, very connected to Shabbat. So now we're going to add a new component, but we actually just mention it because the way we connect Shabbat with light is through candles. Candles are fire, and the way we usher Shabbos out with Havdalah is also with a candle. So there's a concept, there's light and there's fire. Now, obviously, these two are very, very connected. So one of the places that we see light and fire is in the Mishkan, the tabernacle in the desert, and of course later in the temple in Jerusalem, where in the inner sanctuary we have the menorah. Now the menorah had flames of fire, so the 7-branch candelabrum, and they were lit with oil. So it was fire. But when we think of the menorah, we think of light. And the outer courtyard of the temple was the altar. And on the altar was a everlasting fire. And it was a fire that burned continually. So the fire on the outside altar, so this represents the fire of the lower instincts. We could even say the lower svirot, because it was on the altar that we brought sacrifices. And many of the sacrifices were sin offerings or guilt offerings. Others were thanksgiving offerings. But it's very, very connected to the passions and the fire of the heart. Whereas the inner sanctuary represents much more the intellect, and we relate that to light, and the lower svirot to fire. So there is a verse in Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. It goes like this. It's the 8th chapter, the 6th verse. And this is just part of the verse. As mighty as death is love, its coals are coals of fire, the fire of God. So here we're connecting love with, up to now we've been connecting with light, love and light. But here there's a verse that connects love very much with fire. Not all, its coals are coals of fire. And then it says the fire of God. So we're gonna learn a few things about this. So the first thing is the name of the fire of God. The word for the fire of God is Shalhevet Yud K, a name of God. Shalhevet Yud K. This is also a teaching from Rav Ginzburg, that the gematria of Shalhevet Ka is 737, which equals one of the most famous and important verses in the Torah that we say in the Shema, in the first passage of the Shema twice a day. V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol moedecha. But the part of the verse that is with all your heart, b'chol levavcha, with all your soul, v'chol nafshecha v'chol moedecha, with your whole means, your whole being, your whole might, those words equal this word, Shalhevet Ka. So here, this is a very, very beautiful connection, because we're trying to express our love of God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our might. This is like a fiery statement. We're taking all of our passion in a good way, taking all of our love and our passion and our desire, and we are channeling it towards the love of God. So that's just a beautiful kavanah to have every day when we say the Shema, is that we should be saying it and feeling it like the fire of God. That's what we want to connect to, is the fire of God. So the word Shalhevet has in it the letters of Shabbat. So this is also a beautiful connection, is that the light of Shabbat is also the fire of God, is to be on fire to serve Hashem, to be on fire to be close to Hashem. That's why in Yedid Nefesh, the beautiful poem that we read before Shabbos, it it also represents very, very, very much. This is how many congregations sing this right before Kabbalah Shabbat. And it says, I'm love sick with my love of God. And Yedin Nefesh represents so much our tremendous desire to be close to Hashem, our passion to be close to Hashem. And this is represented by fire. Now, here in the verse that we read, where love is compared to a fire. So here we have the name of a man and woman is Ish and Isha. This is a Torah that everyone's heard probably at weddings or Shabbat brachas 100 times. This idea that the two letters that man and woman share, Ish and Isha, is the Aleph and the Shin. Well, the Shin is the letter of fire, Ish. Both man and women have this natural fire. The man has a Yud between the fire, and a woman has a Hey at the end of the fire. And this is one of the names of God, like we just said in the word Shalhevet, Ka, Shalhevet, Yud, and Hey, the fire of God. And so the famous saying is that when a man and a woman have God in their lives, and that is their common denominator, the man contributes a Yud and the woman a Hey. So then the fire really becomes light. But if you take out the Yud and the Hey, what you're left is with just fire. And symbolically, that represents that without the light of God, without a higher purpose, a higher meaning, a higher partnership between man and woman, it classically can descend into fire, and not a good fire. So that's why we're always told that in the creation of a child, there's three partners: the man, the woman, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this letter Shin is, it looks like this. It looks like three flames. And we're told it stands for Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, but it represents fire. That's why the word for fire is Aleph and Shin, because Shin is the letter of fire. Shalhevet, the flame of God, begins with a Shin. So Rav Ginzburg says a number of things about this. First, he says that the three flames of the Shin, these are the three flames of the phrase with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. These are the three manifestations of that love. And again, the words in Hebrew, b'chol lavavcha, u'b'chol nafshecha, u'b'chol ma'odecha, equals shalhevet ka, the fire of God. The other thing that Rav Ginzburg said is that the three prongs, or the three flames of the Shin, represent three different types of love: the love of God, the love of Torah, and the love of Israel. The three primary loves. But we know that on the tefillin, there is this, on one side, there's a three-pronged Shin. On the other side, there's a four-pronged Shin. It's a very, very unique form of the Shin. And it's, other than like philosophically, the only place it really is manifest is on the tefillin. So there, the four prongs represent the four mothers. we said that the three represent the fathers, and this represents Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. So that's very, very beautiful that on the tefillin, you have all of the avot and the imahot, the patriarchs and the matriarchs. So Rav Ginzburg said, what else does the four-pronged Shin represent? An extra love, and that's the love of Eretz Yisrael. And Rav Ginzburg teaches that really there are four cardinal loves. Again, the love of God, the love of Torah, the love of Israel, and the love of the land of Israel. So that's also another very, very beautiful kavanah. So here, we've been trying to show the unity between light, love. We began very much with creation of Shabbat, the creation of light, the role of love in creation altogether. So here, if we go back to this expression, Or HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the light of the Holy One, blessed be He. So we'll notice that it begins with an aleph from Or, and it ends with an aleph from the word Hu. So it begins with an aleph and it ends with an aleph. So here we could make a very, very profound statement that it's very good to meditate on it, is that everything is a manifestation of God's light and is revealed through His love. But then we can reverse it, and we could say virtually the same thing, but reversed love and light. That everything is a manifestation of God's love, which is revealed through God's light. So this is like just a beautiful thing to think about, to meditate on, this idea of light and love, both which begin with an aleph. But here we see in the light of the Holy One, blessed be He, also the idea of aleph and aleph. Now we want to take all of this and think about the redemption. Actually, it's not in Nusach Chabad, but in many, many other forms of prayer. In the morning, actually before the introductory blessing to the Shema, we say, Or Chadash al Tzion Ta'ir, v'nizkeh kulanu b'imheira le'oro, that a new light will shine on Zion, and that quickly we should merit to its light. So very much my organization called Or Chadash comes from this verse, that the promise of the Messianic era of redemption of the whole world, is this idea of a new light will shine in Zion. And so Rav Ginzburg explains that, what does it mean, a new light? So he explains that it really means new, in the sense that it's going to be a type of revelation, a type of consciousness that has never been revealed before. It will truly be new. Not like a greater quantity of light that already exists, or a state of consciousness that already exists, but it just will be greater or deeper or higher or more profound. But it's a new light. And actually the Arizal says that every year, even though one of the ways that we experience time is in a continuum, a continuity. So even though we come to a new year, well, the new year is a continuation of the old year. But the Arizal says that no, it's really a new year, meaning that every year a new energy comes into the world that has not been in the world yet. It really is new. So throughout this series, we've been talking a lot about light. And when we look in the prophecies of the future, so the idea of God revealing himself in a way that he's never revealed before, that a new light will come into the world. That light very much represents redemption. The light of Mashiach, the light of the Torah that will be revealed. And of course, maybe one of the most important of all of the prophecies as far as the mission of the Jewish people is from Isaiah, and that we are called Or Goyim, that our mission is to be a light unto the nations. And so this represents the mission of the Jewish people, is to reveal light, spread light, identify the lights, lift up the hidden sparks of light, heal the lights and the vessels that broke in the breaking of the vessels. So all of this is connected to the idea of the light that is coming. An Or Chadash Od Sion Ta'ir. And so this is very connected to a new level of consciousness. Because if we think about, well, what's going to change in the world? There are different opinions, there are different traditions of what will happen to the natural world, what will happen to physicality. We're not going to get into that right now, but really, when we talk about the Messianic era, we're talking about a new level of consciousness that human beings will reach, will become aware of, that God will open up use the expression, open up the gates of a new type of consciousness. And when we've talked about light, we talk about the light of God. Well, what does that really mean? And so we've identified it as the light that comes from a higher level of consciousness. That's why the Torah is called light. The mitzvot are called candle. Ner mitzvah, v'Torah or. It all has to do with light. Light represents a level of consciousness where we can be aware of godliness, of divinity. So I want to end with a teaching, and I'll invite anyone to watch it. It was a teaching from Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson. I don't remember the exact title, but it was something about the infinite light. And because we're learning about light, I watched many of his videos. So I was very interested. And truthfully, he said many of the things that we've been saying for weeks, but there was one tremendous chiddush that I just wanted to share with you as we end this series. And he quoted from the Lubavitcher Rabbi in one of his sichas, where he said the first shaliach was light. Shliach means a messenger. We know that in Chabad, the couples that are sent out all over the world to set up Chabad houses and centers and schools are called shlichim. They're called the Rebbe's messengers. And the idea is given over in the Talmud is that a messenger represents like fully the person who's sending them. The person sending a messenger gives the messenger a message, a tafkid, a purpose, a task to do, and puts their whole trust that this messenger will fulfill that task, will fulfill that purpose. So what did he mean that light was the first messenger? Because a messenger, in a sense, has no ego, has no personal identity. Now, a person, of course, has an identity, but when they're doing shlichut, they are fulfilling the will of the one who sent them. Now, each one will do it in their own way. That's where their individualism comes in. That's where their uniqueness comes in. But if someone takes it upon themselves to be a messenger, then they have to fulfill the task that was given to them. An example we see this is in the Torah when Avram sends his servant Eliezer to find a wife for Yitzchak. He empowered him to find a wife for Yitzchak. And in the whole story, the name of Eliezer is never mentioned. He always identifies himself as Eved Avraham. I am the servant of Avram. Now, obviously, he had his own identity, his own individualism, his own uniqueness. But while he was doing what he was doing, he, in a sense, was egoless. He was doing the bidding of Avraham. He was a servant of Avraham. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe explained, and Y.Y. Jacobson did a great job, the idea that light is a messenger of the Maor, of the source of light. And therefore, that's why even scientifically, and this is a few of the things we've discussed, that light it's just a very unique thing from a physical point of view. And here we're not even talking about the whole paradox and mystery of it being a particle and a wave. Here we're talking about that the photon has no mass. Now, if we translate that into our language, what we're trying to say is it has no individual identity other than representing the source of the light. And so physical light it's just so totally unique because it bridges infinite and finite, spiritual and physical. And that's why it's given over in Chassidut, but it's given over in science also. If we look up to the sky and we see a falling star, so I'm not getting into the age of the universe, but we're told that what we're seeing is from a long time ago. In other words, if a certain galaxy is 100 light years away, it takes like 100 years to get here. So that star might have exploded 100 years ago, but it took the light 100 years to get here. But we also learned that at the speed of light, no time passes. So if for the light that arrives here billions, maybe trillions of miles away, it is still essentially connected to the original light. And that's what the Lubavitcher was saying, the Lubavitcher Rabbi was saying, is that light reveals essence, because the light of God is coming from, and this is a further debate, exactly the relationship between the infinite light and the infinite essence of God. But without getting into it, the idea is that light is, in a sense, egoless. And that's why it represents such beautiful things, because love also has to do with selflessness. And being spiritual has to do with not being totally egocentric. And being connected to God's light means that we have to be a fitting vessel for God's light. The more we empty our ego, the more we can receive God's light. So I just thought that was just such a beautiful, beautiful idea. So when we talk about light as being a elevated level of consciousness, what we're really talking about is having this inner, what's called bitul, selflessness, where we allow God's light to permeate us. And then, of course, we do have a personality, do have our individualism, but the more that we make room, the more that we, as Pirkei Avot says, make his will your will. That's called being a shliach. When you make his will your will, that means my presence in the world is, I am a representative of my Creator. And that's why it's so important to live a moral, ethical, joyous, spiritual life, because then we affect the world like that, and we were bringing God's will for all of creation into fruition. So this is a good way to end our mini-series on light. Of course, we have not touched on everything, but I'll end with a blessing that through the Torah, which is called light, and through the mitzvot, which are called a candle, that we learn more and more how to access the light of God. And once we access it, to internalize it. And once we internalize it, then we can share it with the whole world.